nice discussion. I'd like to introduce our guests for us to get started. Let's welcome to this program Dr. Steve Ogidon, MNI, is the MD CEO of Successory Nigeria Limited. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Right. Let me also welcome to this program Ogbonna Okuku. He's an investment expert. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right. We're also joined tonight by Amos Sakaba, MD CEO, Good Ground Integrated Services Limited. Thanks for being here. And let me introduce one of our regulars on this program who is joining us tonight, Ezenwa Nwagu, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reform. Ezenwa, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Right. Well, as you do know, at some point in time, you can join us in this discussion. When we get to that point, we'll remind you of the procedure and the process. But for now, let's get started looking at the issues at stake. Nigeria, a path to sustainable development. I would like to kick off with looking at what they say about the sustainable development goals, that they provide the needed socio-economic transformation for citizens. So, how has Nigeria fared in this matter? Let's start off with Dr. Ogidon.
Thank you very much. Nigeria has been doing a lot in advancing sustainable development goals, but a lot can still be done, because in the last 3 years, major crises occurred that affected the road to sustainable development. One is COVID-19. The other economic crisis that the country went into. And given this situation, there is a need for government to continue to double effort to build resilience and then to make sure that nobody is left behind. What are the issues that we have been focusing attention on? Government will need to continue to focus on the people. Government will need to focus on the planet. Government will need to focus on prosperity. And government will need to focus on peace. And the last one is partnership. Focusing on the people, we need to build capacity. Our population should be our strength, and it should not be a disadvantage. Africa's largest market, we need to build the capacity of this market. We have a youthful population. Government has been doing a lot in empowering the youth. We need to focus attention on supporting the youth to be innovative, and we need to focus on digital economy. If we address all these issues and we continue to improve education, especially addressing out of school children, we will be able to say, yes, we are on the right path to sustainable development. Thank you.
It's a good thing you talked about those issues, but just let me push this a little further. You talked about population, Nigeria's population ought not to be a disadvantage.
Yes.
And there's those who also would look and say, well, shouldn't we be doing something about the population, because the number of citizens beginning to far outstrip the ability to cater to the needs of the citizens in terms of decent living. So two sides of one.
Thank you very much. Two sides of the same coin. If we have a population that is growing and educated, it is an asset. If you have a population of illiterate, it's going to affect the capacity of the government to cater for them. So, subnational government, we need to focus attention in building the capacity of the population. The youth, out of school children, take them off the street, create opportunity for free education. Incidentally, government has done something on scholarship for the university. But the subnational government, state government and local government must be able to do something. If we don't do those things, our population will not be an asset to us.
All right. Okay, we'll return to those issues. But let's come to Ogbonna Okuku. You are the investment expert, and over time, there's always been talk about investments in Nigeria. And so far, a lot of citizens would say, how has this succeeded? And I'm looking at investment here, not just foreign, but even investment by locals themselves, because it's said that if you're not willing to invest, if your own people are not invested in their own country, then it's a tough call to expect others to do same.
Let me start off by saying the investment landscape in Nigeria is very interesting, and then it's also very important for us to know that investment or investors, they are like water. They move to areas of least resistance, whether they are foreign or local, they all have the same mindset. So people that have money have a way that they see things. So being able to look at what are the things that drive them, what are the things that motivate them. Number one, investors are resource seeking. They're interested in resources, both human and natural resources. Now, if you don't have enough trained manpower that can work in the business that they want to set up, it becomes a bit difficult for them to do business in your sphere. Now, if they don't have enough natural resources, within, or the natural resources is not well structured, or the raw material supply strategy is not well structured because of lack of infrastructure, and transport system and logistics becomes a bit difficult. So those things are things that would deter them from coming to do business. Now, we talked about population, which is the next thing that actually push investors. They're also market seeking. Now, population sometimes has been, policymakers have erroneously equated population to market. No, there are two different things. Population, yes, you have a whole lot of, but if you don't have people that have the buying power to purchase what you're producing or the services that you're providing, so at the end of the day, that is not market. So you have to still distill to find those who have the ability to purchase. Then the fourth thing is they're also, the third thing is they are strategic asset seeking. I say this all the time because it's a very good example. Now, in 2005, I led a company to buy over a strategic asset in Nigeria, LMA Petrochemicals. When they came, Indorama Group came here, they were worth less than $200 million. Today, the company is worth $15 billion. This is by Forbes. No, that's to tell you that, I mean, since they came into Nigeria and they were able to plug into a strategic asset, today they are very big and they are globally recognized. Now, there is something around this whole discussion, which is the denominator. The denominator is the efficiency in your system. Now, if you don't have efficiency, the fraction becomes improper. So it cancels out everything that, let's say you have natural resources, you have human resources, you have strategic assets. Now, if the denominator efficiency in the system is so bad, which is, it now becomes higher than whatever you have, it cancels it out. I give you a very simple example. Let's look at a Jurong island in Singapore. Now, it's just a very small island of 3,000 hectare reclaimed land. Now, it's the global hub for petrochemicals and refineries. Now, there's the place has about an investment of over $35 billion with a turnover of $90 billion. Guess what? Every transaction done there requires a raw material, hydrocarbon. And then there's no hydrocarbon around there. They're all being imported. Now, the efficiency has taken out the fact that you need to site your factory or your production line near your raw material. Now, efficiency has taken that away. The closest raw material feedstock to Jurong Island is actually a 650-kilometer pipeline from Indonesia. So that goes to show you, that's why they come either first or second when it comes to ease of doing business. Right? So efficiency is actually the key thing when it comes to doing.
This is interesting because it turns everything that a lot of us have known on its head. Because you're saying efficiency is key here.
Yes,
from the example you've just given, citing your resource close to
Factory close to your raw material.
It's been eroded by argument.
Yes, it's been eroded because, I mean, it's working there. So what they did was
another aspect which you've just thrown up now is that you can actually have capacity, you have the manpower, but it's no guarantee of an efficient system.
Because there's a competition. You're competing with other people. As we speak, America is still looking for investment. China is still looking for investment. Everybody's looking for investment. So there's a high competition for this particular dollar that is in the chessboard. So the more you become efficient, the more people want to come and do business with you. So, which is why the last administration tried to put together the Committee on Ease of Doing Business. Now they chose some states, Lagos and Kano, as and we're able to grow. Now, mine is how we're able to now pass that on to other states to understand that investors don't have time. All right? There's a particular governor in the last administration that didn't sign one C of O. So what does that mean? So no investor would have been able to do business in that state. So in reality, Nigeria is a virgin land that requires investment that investors are interested in, but everybody is so worried. So mine is the executive orders that are going to come, the way we're going to, the tax reforms that we've started working on. Those are the kind of things that investors want to see. They'll start applauding because, I mean, they see that the person that is leading the country now understands investment and understand that investors, like I always say, they don't have time. They can't sit down and wait for you to go through the process. No, they don't have that kind of time. So, I mean, I think, obviously, we're moving on the right path because someone who understands business is now heading the nation. So the reality is, so let's have the right people man the right offices, and you'll be shocked what will happen in the next few months.
All right, so much more to talk about, but let's come to Amos Sakaba. And well, you listen to the trend of discussions really, and the same thing we'll put to you. How has Nigeria fared, in the past? What are you looking up to? We've just agreed that expectations are high, and where should we be looking at?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I will start with the position the gentlemen have raised. Very important. It is not enough. First of all, we have to agree that there is fierce competition for FDI all over the world. Every country, like he said, is looking for FDI, the same FDI that will want to establish in different places. And we also know that investors can be driven by efficiencies seeking, raw material source, and all manner of pull factors. But the most important, how do you build national consensus on investment facilitation and business climate reforms? Because this is the point that he's saying when he talks of efficiency, when he talks about efficiency. Yes, I say that, I put it to you that the problem we have in this country is that we have all it takes to attract investment, and they're interested in coming. But it is not enough for the president to go and preach to investors to come. When they do come, maybe they go to Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission and they are receiving the one-stop shop, red carpet. Then they are taken to the MDAs, where the regulators, where these investors will want to seek licenses and other regulatory approvals, and they are frustrated. Or even go to a state where the investment will be located. The state government, the institutional capacity to handle investors professionally is not there. Not to talk of local governments and even host communities where these investments will end up. So there is a need to really roll out a national program on building consensus on investment facilitation, and also agree both at the level of the political will, which luckily we do have it now, and then we need to back up with ownership by all the other MDAs. Not only that, they should create the enabling environment to support reforms that will, because investors come to where they are welcomed, It's not enough to ask them to come, but when they come, they need to be welcome. You need to give them red carpet treatment. You need to give them soft landing. Within some of the challenges we have is that if you look at the regulatory agencies of government, every regulatory agency of government has a mandate to grow that sector that is regulating, to attract private sector investment in that sector. But what do you find? They forget that part and go into regulation, over-regulation. Whereas you need to carefully balance the regulation with the need to give hand-holding support for investors to assist them to navigate through the administrative and bureaucratic bottlenecks of business entry and doing business in Nigeria. And I think this is one area. He mentioned PEBEC. Yes, PEBEC did a very good job. At least we have seen a lot of executive orders. But executive orders themselves, the people to implement the executive orders are not in sync. They need to have this understanding that investors needs to be supported to come into the country and stay. And investors come here to make profit, all right, but they also create jobs for our people. As he said with the LNG, we know how they came to Nigeria. Now they are expanding rapidly. They are having the largest is it a fertilizer plant and petrochemical? They are doing very well because they are operating within the framework of a sector that is a bit matured. But again, they're not having to deal with a lot of other obstacles that we have. But I think we need to do something on the business climate reforms and make it a whole country approach, not just some agencies of government or the president alone or anybody. It should be a whole country approach to investment climate reforms.
So, as you put it, without a commensurate consensus at the sub-national level, you can have all the beautiful plans at the top, at the center, but these things are not going to percolate. They won't trickle down to those areas, the states, the local governments, and again your underlying over-regulation. I know a good friend of mine who's always talked about the question of regulation and such matters, and he's here with us tonight. He's a while ago, and it is from this angle I want you to start off.
Well, thank you, Sujit. I like what I'm hearing, but as it was just coming in my head, I was just thinking, what is the percentage of foreign direct investment in Nigeria and Africa? Generally, I don't know if America was grown or built by foreigners, or whether Russia, as it was, would have been built by foreigners. The Russians built Russia, the Americans built America, the British built the British. So I think the absence of law and order regime creates the bigger challenge, whether it is at the national or sub-national levels. There is no law and order regime. People do things with impunity, and there are no real sanctions that can rein people in. So whether you are talking about the regulator decides for himself. Like he said, he wakes up and decides that this is what is going to happen. He gets to the National Assembly. The National Assembly is not interested in oversighting the regulator. He's more interested in what in this thing that you are doing, what do I have? So I think we need to build a bigger conversation around the textbook on which our country is being run in the last 40 years. The debate about whether we will continue to deify the market the way we are doing, this deification of the market that wants privatization, commercialization, just once you hand over to the private sector, your problem is solved. Government is inefficient, government cannot do anything, it is the private sector. But with a weak law and order regime, both your private sector, because in many cases, your private sector is private sector created in the image of government. What do I mean? You have more people, for instance, who will outsource the hospitals, sell the hospitals, but become investors in a private hospital, use government resources to build a private hospital that is now said to be efficient. So I'm just thinking in my head, can we not have a debate, a conversation about what kind of economy do we want to run? Do we want to run an autochthonous economy, or an economy that is constantly beggarly, the way we are doing? Every time we are talking about our growth, our development, is always about who is bringing money from where. But like Obona said, the resources, whether they are foreign or indigenous, what is important is that there are basic conditions that need to be put in place. And my very important place is you need to create an effective law and order regime. If people will misbehave and there are no sanctions, your court system is weak, your judiciary is not one that can raise those laws that you have made and deal with people who have broken the law, whether they are local or whether they are indigenous or outside. You still continue to have this debate about what is coming. So Over-regulation, why is that so? Why do you over-regulate? Because there is nobody who can say, hey, stop. A friend of mine told me that, look, apart from the president, the most important person in this country is the Inspector General of Police. If you are the chief of defense staff and you run foul of the law, you are going to be arrested by the IG. The only person the IG cannot arrest is the president, the vice president, the governor, and the deputy. So what that means is that if your law and order regime is effective, perhaps most of the challenges that we are facing in business, in economics, in politics will be out of the way in my own thinking.
All right. So you breach the rules. You don't have a strong regulatory system, or you have an over-regulated system. You're, you're hitting the rocks.
Yes.
Okay. Let's look up. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I agree perfectly with what our colleague has said. You see, when foreign investors in quote, when they come into any country, they look for emergency exit. If you build your house without emergency exit, visitors will not come. Airlines come in, they do their business, they cannot repatriate their money. Then the over-regulation, the environment is not conducive. Even our local investors, our regulators have become competitors. You cannot be my regulator and my competitor. Then, if we take you to court, we are not likely to get justice with the speed in which we get it in other climates. These are the things affecting business environment. And again, many investors are discouraged from bringing their money to Nigeria because of the attitude of the arrogance of the regulators. They believe they can do anything. They believe they can withdraw your license at will without any recourse. And then they can gazette anything at any time without you having a way of seeking redress. If we don't address all those things, there will be no foreign investment and local investors will be going. Let me give you an example. We did a business plan for an entrepreneur and he wanted to set up a company in Lagos State. And when we did the analysis and everything, this guy decided to take this factory to Togo. I said, why are you moving to Togo? He said, there is rule of law. And if we disagree, the court will give them judgment within 6 months. In Nigeria, 6 years, you will not get your judgment. These are issues affecting businesses, and these are issues we need to put on the table. If we want to move towards sustainable development, we are a late starter. It is a complete ecosystem. You cannot say you want foreign investment when the infrastructures are not there. You cannot say you want foreign investment when the policeman that's supposed to protect you is the one that is pushing you into the hands of armed robbers. We watch a lot of things on social media. You see people stealing, no consequences. People break street lights, no consequences. And then you take people to court, you don't get judgment on time. These are issues that affect the business environment.
Yes, I was saying.
Because when we're talking about the overregulation, something comes to mind. I remember one of the biggest problems we have is in Nigeria is power. Right. Now, I mean, if you X-ray the power sector, you will see that one of the biggest issues we have in the power sector is actually regulation. Now, because if an investor wants to set up a power plant in Nigeria, these are the things he must go through. One, he must go to Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, and when he gets there, he has to fill a form, and then then he has to go and get his business plan. Then he go and get an evacuation plan. An evacuation plan has to come from TCN, that's Transmission Company of Nigeria. Then when he gets there, they will now go and survey and see the evacuation corridor to make sure that works. Then that's number 2. Number 3, he must situate this particular plant in a location. So that means he has to go and meet a governor who will now hand him over to the Commissioner of Lands, who will now get the land for him. So if he's a gas-powered fired power plant, he has to go to NNPC. NNPC will now direct him to NGC, so he has to deal with NGC to get his gas supply agreement sorted. All this I'm talking about, like 2 years has passed. Now we have not ended though. So he has to get to Ministry of Environment, both in the state and at the federal, to do an EIA. And for you to do an environmental impact assessment, it has to be done during rainy season and dry season. So that's another give and take another 7 months have passed. Now his money is still waiting. He has not gone. And then because power is not something you produce and put on the shelf, he has to go to NBET, Nigerian Bulk Electricity a company, to now go and get a guarantee that if I produce my power, you're going to buy. So all these things, if this money was borrowed, at the end of the day, and when I was even talking about NGC will always tell you that they don't have budget for them to do the gas pipeline that will take the gas to fire your plants. So that means you have to also add that to the cost of your project. Let's say your project was $100 million. So if we use the rule of thumb, a kilometer it costs about $1 million. So you have to, put, let's say it's 20 kilometers from the gas plant. So you have to add another $20 million into your project. So your bankers, your financial advisors, they're asking, what are you doing there? You're still trying to get a license. This is license, so we've not started construction. So at the end of the day, you ask yourself, how do we come out of it? So that we are putting all these things on the table because people in government should see where the problems are and then begin to solve them.
Now, if you push that a little further, you have not started construction. Construction itself might be affected by security issues. Right. So yes.
Yeah, I think that's the point. You cannot run a country like Nigeria that is in a hurry to develop, to catch up, that we have lost opportunities in the past. I think the best thing to do is to pay attention to these reforms. I think, and I like what I'm seeing. I saw the Presidential Advisory Council report, and I'm so impressed with the mechanisms they put in place that elicits self-compliance in a number of issues. The idea of setting up special vehicles to implement reforms, as one of the guests has said, and then they are creating a cabinet level office unit in the presidency to monitor performance and delivery of reforms within the Nigerian state. And the unit will introduce a number of measures, including consequence management.
Right.
If anybody fails to perform, there is punishment for non-performance. You are guided by the KPIs that the government has set out to make sure that they have targets, very elaborate plan. But the question is, we need to work on the psyche. We need to introduce professionalism in the regulation system. Gone are the days when government officials see investors as exploiters who come from outside to take our resources and leave. No. Investments all over the world. He said China, US, they are all attracting investors. They are even rolling out incentives to attract investors in their cities, in US, in other countries, in addition to other measures they are taking. But the point is that for Nigeria, we need to pay attention to how quickly and rapidly we can pull through reforms that will change the narrative. Reforms, just like he mentioned, if it takes you 3 years to access investment in power, then it means you have not started. Why can't you streamline the processes? Why can't you coordinate and create synergy with all the government agencies? Why don't you create special interministerial task forces that would deliver such investments to specific, because we are in a hurry and we are coming late, and we need to do something extraordinary, not just relying on, like somebody said, Nigeria, everybody is a lawyer. All regulatory government agencies are creation of law, and everybody would hold that law and insist on over-regulating. They are just waiting for investors to make mistake. They will put the sledgehammer on them. Whereas that other provision, like I said, every regulatory agency has provision for growing that sector and attracting private sector investment. They are not paying attention to that at all. And that's why those rules and regulations are structured in a way that makes it even difficult and gives rooms for discretionary power that leads to corruption. These are some of the challenges that we have.
Now one of the issues that Mr. Sakaba has raised here is the desirability of a monitoring mechanism. So you set up a monitoring mechanism, good enough. Can we push that further to say, for non-performance, what about the question of accountability, holding accountable for non-performance? Things don't go the way they should go, and those who are entrusted with the responsibility to ensure that pay no price for that.
Well, that word account is accountability. Is accountability, and that's the most difficult part of our conversation. People don't like to account for anything. People don't have that ability to be accountable. Mr. Amos was talking about interministerial. You create another level of power, and influence that leads to what you are talking about. But Nigeria, I don't know if you would not remember, it did have that interministerial something on power where people were gathered, and it became another level of clearing again that you have to. They started exercising, oversights, because once you trade that opportunity, you just see that you have created new levels of bottleneck. And so for me, it's simply zeroing on where Obodna started. See, the 3 years you spend is efficiency issues. It's a very simple way, because there is no country where you walk in, you get license, you get everything. You have to still get those things. But the time you spend in getting them, the seamlessness of getting them makes the difference. Why do you have to go through all those processes? Corruption, nothing more. Every point, what he is not saying is that every point you get to, there is somebody you are settling. Every point that in this whole chain that he has mentioned, for that, if you want it to move in 2 days, it can move in 2 days. If you want it to stay for 3 years, it can stay for 3 years. That is our story. So that is why I talked about the fact that your law and order regime is your much bigger challenge. We travel outside this country. You break the law, you don't say I'm sorry. Nobody comes to say I'm sorry. I mean, I went somewhere with a friend. He was not drinking. He normally drinks. He just sat down. Other people were drinking. I said, why are you not drinking? He said, no, those boys outside there, immediately we get out of here now, they will test me for alcohol. And they are not going to look at your face. They will just do that work. So we are dealing with a system. And those in government, the government, when those of you who are market people talk about creating an enabling environment, I always thought that is what it means, that we will remove these inefficiencies so that things can work seamlessly. But if you do a media content analysis of when we came from the military to civilian, the same hope that we are exercising today about reforms, about transitioning from the high-handedness of the military and the way they do things, we went through all of that every point in time. And that's why I said the textbook with which Nigeria is being governed has remained the same. The people who run the country drink from the same pond, worship in the same shrine. They don't want to do anything differently in terms of, we are raising all the hopes now. Oh, we are seeing very good. Tell me which one started that did not start with a committee that talked about reform. We have a Bureau for Public Service Reform, if you remember. There's a Bureau for, is in itself now a bureaucracy. Is a bureaucracy of its own. And we are not talking about service delivery outcomes in terms of the number of years when we settled that BPSR. What has it been able to reform and achieve? So the challenge for us is not when a new government comes, everybody says, oh, we are excited about the, in fact, they are already thanking the president for the initiative he has taken. Those initiatives need to come crystal clear. We have to see that it is working, because we have been through this before. The idea for me is that what will we be doing? Because all this English will pale into insignificance if we cannot build house for the poor. If we cannot have health for the poor. If children of the poor cannot go to school because of high cost of tuition fee. If our roads are not motorable enough for farmers to, all of that does not need FDI. All it simply needs is active citizen engagement with budgets. The one that we have seen, both at the subnational and the national level. Every year, they say, look, we are going to get this amount of money. Eventually, they may not get that amount of money, but they do get something. And they say, this year, we are going to do X, Y, Z. Educated people in Nigeria don't care about those budgets. We have laws, Child Rights Act, that tells you that children of particular age have to be in school free, compulsorily. That law is there, is both at the national and at the subnational level. We have a law that talks about free medical education for what do you call them, for people living with disabilities. There is a Disability Act that was signed that makes provisions for those things. We don't act on those things. So the foreigner is looking at our own small laws, the one that we created for ourselves. How much are we able to even implement the laws that improve the life of our own citizens? And I think that is where it comes. So when my thinking is that the citizen part of this engagement, in terms of how we'll galvanize them to be interested in how they are governed, needs to take a front burner. This whole celebratory mood that we are in is anesthesia. We are in a state of anesthesia right now, where we are just being shot with some things, and everybody is like, hallelujah, you know. It's not going to go well if we don't insist that agencies of government who have responsibility to the citizens need to wake up, whether today or tomorrow. Committees don't change anything, because they will be there. There is no government that has come since 1999 that did not put up economic team. They all had economic team. What was the city? What were they sitting and doing? They were sitting and thinking about reforms. We have laws in the National Assembly, Whistleblowers Act, what do you call them? Fiscal Responsibility, Procurement Act. All of those acts are reform acts. They are supposed to deal with the inefficiency issues that you talked about. Those laws have not been abrogated. They are enforced. But why? What is the difference? That the difference is simply that the agencies and institutions that have responsibility to make those things work have themselves become the issue. If you want to travel out of the country, countries that don't need yellow fever, there is a port health district that will insist that you must get yellow fever card. You pay for it. Nobody is there. You get all this drama that at our ports. How many agencies do you have there? Is that what you have in other places? All of those agencies are not doing work. It is an opportunity for what we don't want to talk about. We need to streamline those things and ensure that when you get to a Nigerian port, when you travel out of the country, if you go to the toilet in any of the cities where you go to, nobody greets you. You go to toilet and come out. If you enter, as you are just coming into Nigeria, if you enter into the toilet, somebody is already holding tissue paper and greeting you 5 times. Those things are the disincentives, small disincentives for business. As you are coming down, you just arrived the country, you are entering your country. Somebody is saying welcome, welcome. He has seen you, welcome. He wants to stand. He holds your passport down. That's what he does to you, who is a citizen of the country. What will he do to an outsider? These little things are important. It is first about us, and that's why I said Britain was not built by outsiders. It was built. So all this is because Wona and Ogaimons, we are talking about incentive. People are giving incentives. Most of those incentives are for their own citizens. That's why you have immigration issues in America. You know, those immigration issues are to make sure that even outsiders don't come to deplete the opportunity. What did you have Brexit for? More and more countries are thinking autochthonous. They are thinking how to look inwards, shut the door, think about themselves. When President Tinubu came, I thought he would have had a national conversation, which he alluded to. A national conversation that even pushes us to where are we going? Where should we be going to at this time? Economically, because most of the conversations are political. You are not talking about how to revitalize. What is your budget for education? You have not done 26% that UNESCO. You are talking about what that fund does, what these people. But budget line Ministry of Education has not passed 11%. There's something that is in public education. How can you have a galvanized, educated citizen when you are not budgeting for education in public schools? When your public schools are gradually becoming centers of ignorance. So the big challenge for me is that conversation needs to happen. And I like what you called it. You called it a national consensus. We need to build that national consensus on where do we truly want to go to.
We also have a number of reports in addition to the conversation in the studio. We will take the first of those reports at this time. This one is from Lagos.
Over the years, a major concern of the private sector in Nigeria has always been its inability to properly access public services, especially as it relates to enhancing the performance of business activities. In order to sustain Lagos' status as the nation's commercial and financial hub, the Sanwo-Olu administration acknowledged easy access to government services, provision of stable electricity, and citizenry empowerment as vital areas of improvement. Similarly, the government has implemented policies and programs that have impacted positively on industrial development. Towards this end, the Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration developed an agenda in Lagos State called THEMES, which means traffic management and transportation, health and environment, education and technology, making Lagos a 21st economy, entertainment and tourism, governance and security.
THEMES agenda, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, are things that could help Lagos formulate its development agenda, build performance metrics around it, measure its performance along the line of the standard that it has set.
Investment in human capital is very, very paramount to ensure that we drive this process. In addition to that, is also the provision of the right kind of infrastructure. Basic infrastructure like power, like digital infrastructure, the internet backbone.
The informal sector is also being transformed. In today's Lagos, it is difficult to ignore the informal sector as it has become a veritable source of prosperity and employment for many.
Sent Imota mill, that rice mill, which has the capacity to both direct and indirect jobs, given the numbers of about 200,000. Okay, that in a way for a state like Lagos is still minimal, but it's still something. So more investment has to be made in area of agricultural value chain.
Investing in human capital is crucial. Prioritizing education and skills development will create a capable workforce equipped to tackle the challenges of the future.
Respondents are, however, optimistic that with the enabling business environment, there would be massive development in all sectors in the state, as the beauty of democracy is in the opportunities it creates for people to have access to sustainable wealth.
That report from Lagos. Next one is from Kaduna.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the 16th president of Nigeria, is considered as a shining moment that will address the most fundamental development challenges the country is presently faced with. Kaduna State, for instance, has had its fair share of insecurity, which a cross-section of Nigerians are of the view that The new administration needs to pay priority attention to it and other critical sectors of the economy that are capable of reversing the ugly predictions by some development institutions.
Our quest for any development cannot be achieved without, one, having a conducive atmosphere. Two, issue of security must be addressed. That will attract investors.
In addition, outside security is the improvement of power generation. If the power generation is being improved, then the small enterprises will come off and the economy of the country will be great.
We need to reorganize agriculture and take it seriously. And what I mean by being serious with agriculture is that not only giving loans to farmers, but the farmers need guidance and direction. If we have to depend on importation of food, that will seriously affect our GDP.
We need to have a National Assembly whereby it is manned by experienced people that have reached the zenith of their professions, so that we have people that know what they have gone to do there.
They say consolidating on the gains of previous governments is a pathway to a brighter and productive society.
We are more divided than we were. The issue of religion has come to the fore. Ethnicity has also come to the fore. We are more divided. The Tinubu I know, being a pan-Nigerian, will have to summon courage. And of course, I have no doubt in my mind he will do that. Bring all the ethnic nationalities together, discuss with them and engage every section of the country so that no side of this country will feel marginalized.
I want the government to incorporate the local government, the local communities, that is going down up to the ward heads, from the district head, village head to the ward head. If that is being done, I believe there is going to be a drastic change in the country.
The consensus by stakeholders is that the roadmap of the new administration will no doubt turn around the fortunes of the country and promote national development, which will in turn improve the standard of living of the vulnerable citizens in the country.
Two key issues have come out from those two reports. One has to do with not just the policies in place, but the environment in which those policies are expected to thrive. In the last report, the question of adequate power supply and security played out. For any kind of investment, local, foreign, these are prerequisites. And someone even went as far as talking about the country being a lot more divided than it was in the past, which again brings into the fray the question of unity, nationalism, people who want to agree and say, look, you have to admit that you belong to this country and want to remain its citizens for you to contribute to its development. So you don't have the forces pulling aside now, if you have that. So what can be done in the circumstances, looking at what faces the new administration?
Thank you very much. 3 things could really be done. Number one, critical infrastructure is key to development. MSMEs cannot grow if there is no power, if there is no security, if there is no access. But again, social cohesion in the country is weak. As one of our colleagues have pointed out, we are divided. This is a reality. But the fact remains that whether we like it or not, there are some basic things that have been established. One, we need to have a country so that we can say this is our own country. And then people must be able to come together. Politicians must be able to put their heads together from local government up to the state level. It is not only the responsibility of the federal government to improve social cohesion. In the states, they are divided. In the local governments, they are divided. People feel marginalized. And this again transcends to security. Because when people feel threatened, people can survive without food. They can survive without water. Nobody can survive without hope. We need to go back and give hope to our people. When we give hope to them, they will now be able to see that, yes, we have a country, And then this country must survive, and everybody must make their contribution to be able to move the country towards sustainable path. But again, there are things that the government is supposed to do for the people. People now say, what do I get from the government? The government that cannot provide security for you, your children cannot go to school, then they are not protected. Electricity, the bills are going up, electricity is not there, the road infrastructure is not there. Everybody must come to the table, do your own part, and as it has been said before, hold people accountable. We have not been holding people accountable for what they fail to do and what they are supposed to do. If we are able to put all this on the table, there is trust deficit now, and this will be taken care of. Thank you.
Trust deficit, corruption, well, as Ewa says, it's one thing we don't want to talk about, and the root cause of almost all the problems is corruption in the system. When you need to grow an economy and build sustainable structures, how much attention should you pay to this?
Now, man by nature would always want to rebel, even from creation. But what you do, there are set rules that you put around man. So what you do, you don't expect people to do the right thing. You make people do the right thing. So what do you do? First things first, you set the rules. Make sure you carry out your judicial reform to make sure that those who are willing to do crime will also do the time as soon as you are caught doing the crime. That's number two. Now, you remove man a lot from systems, because if you want to create systems, technology is now available where you can actually, substitute interference with processes where man cannot put their hands in. So, number three, you need to also have that political will to say, okay, for me and my house, I'm talking about leadership now, if your public value proposition is weighed and then they see that you mean business, everybody will adjust naturally. I say it all the time. Every single person in this country, when they travel abroad, everybody will just adhere. Everybody will behave well because there are rules there, and nobody says sorry to anybody. If you do anything wrong, you're going for it. So for me, if we're able to create a system where things are able to, prune themselves, take care of themselves, we won't have as much issues as we're having. If processes can be done online, for example, the licenses we talked about earlier, if somebody can just stay in the comfort of his house and do the license, if somebody can stay in the comfort of his home and pay his tax without coming to the tax office.
Okay, but
so some of these things they are very possible.
Good.
These things are very possible. But I mean,
yes, true. But
efforts,
again, those are also dependent.
That's what I'm saying. It comes back to leadership. If the leadership decides, okay, this is what we want to achieve, because the reality, we have come to that point where if we don't get things right, a lot of things will go bad.
Not forgetting the very recent, almost discredited reforms in the banking sector. I'm bringing this up because he talked about technology being able to take away the drudgery in some of those activities. But again, we tried to do that and we saw the chaos that resulted on account of certain infrastructure not being in place.
Yeah, thank you. I think before we go, I need to react to the point on mistrust. You see, no society can be built on a moral order of lawlessness, mutual mistrust and suspicion by ethnic nationalities and religious groups. And I think this is very important. Part of the challenge of unity is rooted in the perceived inequalities or deprivations by the ethnic nationalities and religious groups. And I think leadership has an important role to play in this direction. You need to restore confidence of citizenry on the Nigeria project. You need to be able to show that you have political will to push through and pull through reforms that will change the narrative. But more importantly, we have to create systems and mechanisms to force compliance. I always use the analogy of power, when they introduced prepaid meters, before prepaid meters came into being, people will wait until NEPA comes with a ladder to disconnect. Now, because you have prepaid meter, you are monitoring even the use of energy in your house. You are checking how much credit is left. A lot of things. So people are complying. You don't need to take a pickup and a ladder and rush to an area to disconnect if there's prepaid meter. So if you have systems and laws that are working and policies that are working, and you see that people will comply. That's what is happening abroad. When Nigerians are abroad, they are 100% in compliance. But when they come home, because the system is not there, anytime you allow discretion, there must be room for abuse. There must be room for corruption. And that is the point. But I like to see the situation Nigeria is headed to now, that even the emphasis on when we say political will, I think for some time, for the first time, we are having leadership that is tackling issues frontally. Okay, the political will to take difficult decisions is very important, especially when it comes to reforms. When you are thinking of changing people's psyche, changing people's mind and approach and attitude and character, you really need to have the political will to push it through. And I think we are not in short demand of it for now so far. I don't know what happens tomorrow, but what I'm saying is that so far there's indication that this government is ready to pick and run quickly, because we are coming from deficit point of view. And I'm also saying that if you look at the blueprint, the Presidential Advisory Council report that I've gone through, they have put those mechanisms in place. They even put milestones, measurable milestones that you can check and hold the government accountable, as time goes by. They have also put systems that indicate that they understand what the challenges are. So, I mean, to me, if you understand what the challenges are, if you know that the economy of Nigeria is in a crisis, you are heavily indebted, you have a lot of challenges and you need to do something about it, and you go systematically addressing those issues, and you have the political will to hold people accountable and to push through reforms, regardless of who it will affect, I think we should be able to pick this and run with it for now. We cannot expect the kind of transformation that we expect. Of course, it's a learning process, but it's a new government. A lot of the things that are happening, nobody gave them a chance before. Nobody thought a government will come that will have the political dexterity to take this kind of decisions. But we need this kind of political will to do anything we want to do, whether on the economy, on national unity, on insecurity. Political will is very crucial. And then the next thing is, how do you get the buy-in? How do you get Nigerians to take ownership and to buy into all this and move the country forward? I think this is what we should be looking at.
Yes, yes, they were.
Today in Nigeria, why there is calm is because there is a jostling for position.
Right.
Okay? People are, right now, whether in the media space or everywhere, people are jostling now. Is entrism all over the place. Whether in the state, people are looking for commissioner, they are looking for this. Just give a little time. All right? The thing is this: social cohesion, disunity, all of those issues are things that, if you are my age in Nigeria, that is what you have been hearing, that we are disunited. This is not the first time I'm hearing that we are more disunited than we are. I've had it before now. So what does that tell me? We need to do a leadership audit. We need to do a zonal, regional leadership audit, for instance, across the zones, and say since 1999, how much have legislators from every zone collected as constituency projects from their zone? We need to go back to that zone and see whether what has been expended as constituency project is on ground in those zones. The National Assembly is, the reason we have a bicameral legislature is because we want to accommodate the different interests. That's why we zone positions everywhere, so that we can, in those places, whether you are from Jerusalem, you collect constituency project, there is nobody from the south, west, that does not get constituency project or facilitate it. But at a point in time, the ICPC started a walk around that, where we saw the expose in terms of the fact that people will take this, facilitate these things, sometimes keep them in their homes and not use them for the benefit of the people. If you want to open a bank in Nigeria, investors are here. What do you require to open a bank? You must have Ezenwa, you must have Abubakar, you must have Tunde to open a bank. The banks that you have in Nigeria share profits, no fight, no quarrel, no anything. We need to come to that point where we are asking the people who are from our own area whether they have represented us well. The first thing you do as a minister is that you are a representative. That's why you have 42 ministers. Every state must have a minister from the state. You are first and foremost a representative of your state as a minister. Accountability issue that you talked about. Take Ruga, for instance. The livestock transformation, whatever. As a minister, you would discuss it in cabinet. Did you go back to your people to say this thing, this policy will benefit you people in this particular way, and explain to your people the ramifications and what they need to happen, what needs to happen? The cry of marginalization, as real or perceived as it may be, is a vehicle for also capturing the imagination of the people and redirecting their anger to what is far away. What is close is dealing with the people more than what is far away. All of us in civil society, we have a budget tracking mechanism at the National Assembly. In the state, who tracks anybody's budget? Lagos is, they say, it's the biggest economy in there. Where is there? Can you Google the budget of Lagos right now and see Lagos budget on the net? It's not there. It's not available. So the point for me is we need to do a leadership audit. That leadership audit will expose how people have undermined their own people and directing them to what is far away. 52% of the resources is with the federal, 48% is in the states. What has it been used to do for the people? Most of what is done in the states is done by the federal. The universities, state universities, are taking money from TED fund. They are not funding their own universities. They are not doing anything. The people, both social forces within those states, are directed to be asking questions on the federal. They will never ask any question on the czar that lives in their own state. So the issue of unity, we are very divided right now, all of those issues can go down once, for instance, I can go to Imo State University. I'm from Imo State University. I'm from Imo State, for instance. How much fees do people from that state, both underground and on the table, pay from that state? Is key. So this, you see, let us unite the country. I agree. Why will you impose that responsibility on the federal? If you are from Kogi State, if you are doing majoritarian rule, people from a particular part of that state will continue to rule that state. If you are from Benue, if you are from a particular part of Benue, you will be governor if it is majority vote. If you go to Imo State, if you are from certain parts of Imo State, you will never be governor of that state. If it is like that, that disjointed nature of relationship needs to be tackled from below. And I think Doctor referred to that. If we want a national healing, the place to start is at home.
Okay.
Then you take it from there up.
All right, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we will open the phone lines and you can get to join in the conversation in the studio. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. It's about the path to sustainable development. Now, this segment, the phone lines will be open, the numbers will be on your screen. You can call in and be part of the discussion. We say this every Tuesday. If you're calling in tonight and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point. We say to you, don't bother too much about the greetings. Just a simple hello would do. So keep those calls coming, and whatever issues you raise, our guests will address them appropriately. We start off now with another in our reports, this one from Enugu.
Some observers see the economic growth plan of the Enugu State Governor, which is to grow the state's GDP from the current $4.4 billion to $30 billion in the next 8 years, as a tall dream. Governor Peter Mbah and his team affirm that the plans, though ambitious, are achievable.
The only way we can grow our GDP from 4.4 to 30 billion in the next couple of years is by beginning to welcome private actors, work in partnership with the federal government, and ensure that we monitor productivity by setting out clear project management goals.
Having set up an economic planning team to craft an implementable action plan, the strategy is to stimulate growth through constructive private sector investments, with focus on agriculture, energy, and mineral resources.
We believe strongly that the private players and actors are the ones that can help us escalate this whole threshold of eradicating unemployment. And as long as we don't do that and encourage them and partner with them in a meaningful way, it will now return to the old mantra where government becomes the highest employer of labor. We want to move away from that thinking.
Under youth development, the target is to equip a minimum of 40,000 youths in digital technology and a minimum of 10,000 youths in practical skills yearly. Critical to economic growth is peace and security. Hence, the three-pronged interventions: youth empowerment, rural development, and community policing.
We made it clear that part of the programs we're going to adopt is to strengthen our community policing. And since we came in, since our swearing in, we've continued to do that. We've continued to carry out operations with those local security groups.
As Nigeria strives to improve on its ranking on the Global Sustainable Development Goals Index, a fusion of the state's and national economic development agenda would no doubt accelerate the journey to a more sustainable future for all by the year 2030.
All right, from Enugu, we move on to Calabar for another of our reports.
A paradigm shift in actual development. Nigerians are of the view that paying lip service and politicization of policies must be in the past and replaced by political will to practically implement plans and programs of government using appropriate personnel. Laying a solid foundation in the educational sector is identified as a good starting point, with various models that will trickle into other sectors.
Unfortunately, challenges related to implementation have mitigated the success of these policies. To promote sustainable development in the area of economic development, government has to create a template, a supervisory template, to monitor the production, manufacturing activities.
I think the local government should completely be an issue of the state governments, so that every state can create the amount of local government that they can manage. This is part of the problem.
At every point in time, if a parastatal in that village, if a parastatal need hands, they should consult the Ministry of Employment. The Ministry of Employment will now look at where they can get graduates that can fit in those positions they think are vacant in their various parastatals.
So if the government of the day can provide adequate funding for agriculture, for the rural farmers, I mean the real farmers, not the political farmers. If they can provide what we call agricultural incentives, like fertilizers as well as grants to these real farmers who can be identified through their local chiefs.
Without equipping the youth for tomorrow, we will not have better leaders. One of the reasons is that from primary to secondary school should be given a free education. Primary institution, you could work on it and see how we could make anything to work. One of it is that having a good structure for learning.
The concern by these professionals is not only enough to map out strategies as with previous administrations, but the essential is the effective implementation by creating a robust system to promote and sustain development even after the completion of the current administrations.
All right, that report from Calabar. One of the key points raised in that report was agriculture. And again, a lot has been said that it's key to the kind of development that we're looking at here. So let's take the reforms in agriculture. The gains that have been made in past years, how to build on them, or what needs to change.
Agriculture is key to sustainable development. People in this country were feeling hungry. And according to the National Bureau of Statistics, households spend more than 52% of their income on food. So if we really want to do something to address that issue, we must strengthen our smallholder farmers. The smallholder farmers are key to food security in this country. And a lot of programs are going on. IFAD Value Chain Development Program is there. A lot of these farmers have been organized into geo-cooperative. There's a need to strengthen them so that they'll be able to produce more food. If we produce more food, we'll be able to have national food security, and then we'll be able to do import substitution. Without this, many of the issues that are related to security and everything has to do, because when people are hungry, they are likely to start crisis at the slightest provocation. So there's a need to focus on agriculture, and there's a need to modernize our farming techniques so that we'll be able to support our farmers to produce
Well,
more.
speaking of modernizing the farming techniques, so many still raise concerns that in this day and age, the symbolism of agriculture still is the hoe and the cutlass. And it's not changing as fast as we want it. Mechanized agriculture is still a far cry. In some places, it's seen mostly as a tokenist.
I'd like to even go towards, I move a bit further from, the food security issue, talking about raw material supply strategy. You see, when it gets to agriculture, is one of the strongest base for raw material, providing raw material for industrialization of any nation. Now, I say this because, if you look at for the pharmaceutical industry, look at the beverages, the industry, confectionaries, so a lot of things require products from agriculture. Now, the real question is, are we able to meet up because with the hose and all of that, you can't meet up with the required, because for you to be able to feed, let's say, for example, a cassava, you want to do cassava processing plant today, for you to be able to feed, or you want to do 6 million litre of ethanol plants. So you need to cultivate at least 1,200 hectares of cassava farm for you to be able to feed a 6 million litre ethanol plant. So what that means, and at an average of 18 to 20 tons per hectare. So that also means that your input has to be accurate for you to be able to get that yield. Now, where is that fertile land? Where do you have cleared land to be able to achieve this? So the reality is we must be able to get our locals, those who are the subnational, to know that you need to clear lands. Yes, we have arable land, but most of those land are virgin land. They have storms, they have big trees that you can't even cultivate in that land. This cassava we're talking about, sir, do you know that we are the largest producers of cassava in the world? Okay, Thailand is already the second largest producer of cassava. We produce about 50 million tons of cassava, while they produce about 36 million tons of cassava. We make less than $100 million from cassava. But Thailand, the second largest producer of cassava, makes about $2 billion from cassava. Value addition. What you do with the cassava. So as we turn to tapioca, we turn to, and because of the way the farms are scattered, right. So you can't even make use of that cassava, because one, cassava is a very sensitive, crop. When you pull it out from the ground, if you don't add value in the next 48 hours, it becomes bad. You can't even meet international standard. You can't use it in any factory. So the high demand for cassava is so high that, in the whole nation, there is no factory where they make glucose syrup, and the basic raw material for glucose syrup is actually cassava. Now, this is me saying that everybody says, let me just candy. I don't want to call the name of a particular candy. That candy is made in Nigeria. No, candy is not made in Nigeria. Candy is assembled in Nigeria, because candy is made up of glucose syrup, coloration, and flavoring. And glucose syrup comes from either Denmark, Turkey, or China. Coloration comes from India, and then flavoring comes from India or China. So which one are we producing here? So we're just assembling. It's the same thing that happens in the pharmaceutical industry. So you keep wondering what happens to the effects that comes to the nation. It all goes back to being able to import raw materials, because we assemble even drugs here. We don't make any drug in Nigeria. As small as paracetamol, it's been assembled, because active pharmaceutical ingredients is still gotten from outside Nigeria, it's gotten from India. So the reality is, if we push in some more as far as agriculture is concerned, and for us to be able to achieve that, we need the support, not just the federal government, not just the federal Ministry of Agriculture. We need the states to be involved. We need to have an action plan on, to be able to have agriculture work. The second issue, which is animal husbandry, Ezenwa said something about Ruga. That whole back and forth, I was actually in pain. Why? Because it's actually what I call a lifeline given to us that we're playing with. A country, Botswana, cow, beef, exactly what telcos contribute to our GDP. That's exactly what cow contributes to their GDP. They have improved the cow transaction to a point where there is even Botswana Meat Commission. They are one of the biggest exporters of beef to Germany, some parts of Europe. Why? Because they've used technology. And RFID, every cow in Botswana, meanwhile, they have more cows in Botswana than they have human beings. So every cow in Botswana has an RFID chip. So if a cow strays into your farm, I don't need to quarrel, because from a big dashboard from the ministry, we know whose cow entered, because every cow has an owner. And why do you have an owner? You have an owner for tax purposes and then for butchery, as soon as the cow enters the butchery. So that's how you trace the cow until it gets to Europe. They know when it goes to a veterinary, they know when it comes out. So everything is so transparent. And let me even say, I don't even know why my Igbo brothers have not even noticed that cow is sold for 50 pula in Botswana. And that's about, at the exchange rate today, is about 2,900 naira. One cow leg. That's how much they sell cow leg in Botswana. No, sorry, the 4 cow leg, because they don't use it, because the beef has actually brought the money that they need. So if you buy the 4, they'll give you the head for free. So these are the realities. Until we're able to pay attention, know how, Botswana is not far. We just go and study what they have done, and then we're here discussing Ruga, no Ruga, and I'm looking at everybody. Are we all? I mean, does everybody understanding what's happening in the world? People have moved away from these things. The dairy products, how much we spend on dairy importation in Nigeria. Everything we do here is we bag here and seal. How can a cow travel all the way from Zamfara to Enugu and be normal? It can't lactate. It's not possible. So we should stop. Yeah, there's culture. If there's culture around that, but I mean, we should have also industrialization plan around the same business. And then everybody, the country will make more money. And then we're talking about income for the nation and then income for households. So I mean, these are things we need to actually x-ray. And then the government of the day should be able to look at these things. And then the third issue would have been finance. But let me leave my other colleagues.
Okay, yes. Let's come back to Eva Sakaba. Yes.
Yes. On agriculture, I think we have a bigger issue of insecurity. Agriculture is virtually abandoned in the bulk part of the north. People cannot go more than a few meters away from the town to farm because of insecurity and the activities of insurgents and bandits and the rest. And secondly, the implementation of previous agri programs is suspect. I don't know whether to pass a verdict of success or otherwise in respect of projects like Anko Borrowers. You know, Anko Borrower is CBN. I don't know how CBN could reel out such a very big program without involving Minister of Agric, without involving states, I don't know what kind of agriculture. Agric is not about the money. And even the money is not going to the right places, it creates a lot of problems. So we need to look at agri comprehensively. I think EFAD and USAID are doing something along that direction. How do you build the agribusiness value chain? How do you connect the small farming communities to access international market value chains? You know? Why are we exporting raw material? Why can't we add value locally? Get it to the standard that is exportable. Why can't we make exportation seamless? Why should it be a nightmare to export made in Nigeria products? There are a lot of issues. That's why I keep talking about reforms, but my friend here doesn't seem to appreciate that. But I can tell you that all these things, you need systems and mechanisms and policies that work and make them work.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Well, we have our first caller on the line tonight, Adeola calling in from Shagamu. Adeola, go ahead. Hello, Adeola.
Thank you, Stoga. You have been a white in your face and another. So, this discussion that is on, I'm a legal practitioner.
Okay.
It is obvious that we have so many laws in Nigeria that are not attended to. If our laws are attended to and are meant to work, Nigeria will be the better place. Those who are to enforce our law, as rightly observed by one of the speakers, turn to semi-God. And they are turning to semi-God. It's not actually to do what the law has them to do, but to further and feed their fat. And this is at the expense of the nation. From the airport to anywhere in this country, in the ordinary road, even to the market, you will see them. You know, they are very eager and very full of energy to exercise their power. It is not to the betterment of Nigeria, but to their personal pockets. But the day we continue to allow this law to take effect, we will see Nigeria as a better place. If offenders are actually punished, some of those who are likely going to this crime, they will run away. Like what is attention? If ready to do the crime, you should be ready to do the time.
Right.
Don't spare the road, no matter who was it.
Okay.
then Nigeria will be a better place.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much, Adeola from Shagamu. Thank you. Well, Izenwa, he was just given the tick to your earlier comments about making the laws work. And again, back to the issue of how we must address the question of sustainable development. We have started off this segment talking about agriculture. And again, if you look at what's been happening, it's still subject to virtually all we have spoken about in the future. The question of accountability again. How so is that?
Well, so the agri conversation is interesting. It's interesting how insecurity also can become a cover for political farmers. Now, what I mean is that who are those who assess the agric loans? Where are their farms? So you can't go now, if he has taken a loan from Bank of Agric, Bank of whatever, Anchor Borrower, and then he says, oh, you can't come to check. The bandits have driven off. So the money goes like that. That money has disappeared because, so political farmers, land where people have taken people's lands, which they are not farming, they are using it to assess loans, which they don't intend to pay back, and how that affects. So the conversation of insecurity and how farming we need to be a bit nuanced. I'm just saying we need to be a bit nuanced so that we don't provide the cover for people who are not the real farmers. Are the ones doctor talked about. These smallholders. They are doing their farming. They are feeding carrots. All this salad I just passed. All the ram if you go to any part of this country, you will see ram. Where are those rams? Most of them Zamfara, the rest, some Niger, but they pass through somewhere. The point that I'm making is very important for us to be nuanced. Two is the issue of who are the owners of these cows. Why? Because Obonna talked about culture. In many cases, the owners of this culture are not the tenders. They are not the headers. Most of the people who own these cows may not even come from that part of the country, because in my place, one cow will be close to 500,000 to 600 to 700. That cow that is not lactating, it is used for burial. It is used for what is it called? Marriages. Everything you do around that area, that cow is not involved. So it is business. It is huge business. The value addition that he's talking about is not in the mind of the elites who own those cows. Okay. They are not thinking of adding any value. It's the same thing with fruits. If you travel from Abuja to Benue, from Lagos to Fiditi, down to the whole of that area, you see fruits everywhere. You can't. There is nothing that says you cannot have small cottage, fruit producing places. There are people who in this country import their apple from South Africa. What do you call it? From Israel. Sorry, apples are brought for homes in Nigeria, but some of those things are produced. They are dying within those roads, and nobody is doing anything.
Sorry. We'll just take this next call. Chimezie calling in from Owerri. Hello, Chimezie. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to congratulate all the participants there, especially my brother, to contribute my own thing for Nigeria to move forward from where we are today. we should learn to tell ourselves the truth. Both in government, we should tell ourselves truth. Too many bottlenecks, too many policies that are not implemented. It cannot take us anywhere. There is something adage in my place. When you want to cook a good soup, and you take a soup of the recipe, and with a teaspoon of water, you cannot cook that soup. And if the world is gone, nobody will eat it. In this time, Nigeria, we have eggheads, we have intelligent people, but unfortunately, they are not allowed. And when they are allowed, whatever policy they bring about, nobody implements it. Should we all the crying policies, every day we are running out white papers, which they are not implementing. It is sad. If nobody can tell us, other African countries are laughing at us. We should take that other African countries are laughing at us. It is time, with this new government, I think it is time we put a square peg in a square hole.
Right.
God bless all of us and God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chimeze from Owerri. Yes, just before we took the call.
Yes, I was trying to say that I need to react to what he said about, I'm not holding brief for political farmers, as it were, but I want to say that I'm from Kebbi State, and I know thousands of small farmers have been displaced because of insurgency. They've not been able to go to farm. They've been relocated to different local government areas. And the IDPs are there, and the devastation is still ongoing. So if you assume that insecurity is not taking a toll on farming, on agriculture in the north, then it's a big mistake. It's a big problem, and I think that it is not only in terms of the food security component, but even in terms of it is a kind of social explosion ready to happen. Because these people, they are widowed, the children are orphans, they are not in school, they are displaced from and exposed to the elements of weather because they don't have homes, they are in camps. These people have challenges, and I think if these challenges are not addressed, even as we are fighting the military part of the battle, we should also consider doing something like a Marshall Plan to rehabilitate the impact, or to reduce the impact of this insurgency and insecurity in the north. It's a big problem. That is because a lot of young people are now joining the bandits because they have nothing else to do. And if there's no deliberate, conscious plan to get these people back, I think we will lose them to this insurgency. I think it's important that we stress this point.
Thank you.
Right, yes.
Thank you very much. I did a lot of work in the agri sector. And if we must tell ourselves the truth, banditry, insurgency, they are major crises affecting the agricultural sector.
Yes.
Going to farm is not the problem. Coming back from the farm is the issue.
Yes.
We saw what the governor of Borno State just did, I think last week. He bought some vehicles to be able to transport the farmers to the farm so that they could go in group and come back in groups. These are activities, serious activities that subnational government should be able to do to support their farmers to go back to the farms. The farmers have been abandoned. The local government have abandoned the farmers. The state governments have abandoned the farmers. The federal government has no capacity to monitor the farms, to support the farmers. Whether we like it or not, farming is local, and it is in the local communities. It's happened in Kebbi, it's happened in Zamfara, it's happened in Kaduna State. And you can see continuously the former governor of Kaduna State was always talking about it, harassing the farmers in the farm by the bandits and everything. It has affected. So we must restore security. Another issue I need to quickly talk about is this issue of Bureau of Public Service Reform. BPSR is doing a whole lot of work, but Bureau of Public Service Reform is about civil service reform, not political reform.
Exactly.
So communication might be a challenge. They might not have been communicating effectively, but the Bureau has been doing a whole lot of things to change the orientation of the civil servant. But whether we like it or not, where did we get the civil servant from? From Nigeria.
Society.
And from the society. And you see, no matter how good you are, if you are a good swimmer, if the swimming pool is dirty, you cannot be neat. So the community is dirty, the civil service are from the community. So we need to be able to change the orientation from the family up to the highest level. So we need political reform, economic reform, to be able to make sure that we have a country, that we have a system that can work. We are talking of sustainable development. Without food security, without agriculture, we have lost it. Then we must modernize agriculture. The smallholders farmers still hold the key to feeding the country. And unless we do something for them, mechanize the system, encourage them, create access to market for them, and give them access to credit, not just Central Bank of Nigeria sharing money. Central Bank of Nigeria is a regulator. You cannot be a regulator and a player. You cannot be the referee and the player in the field. People must be able to do their job. Because you hold the money and you dash the money to the people you like, that does not give us the kind of result. We need strong institutions, not strong men. Thank you very much.
Let's go back to the phones now. Umar calling in from Nasarawa. Hello. Hello. All right. Lost that call. Right. And Ogbonna Okuku started talking about another key aspect of all of this, but he just stopped short. And I've been looking towards that direction. As fine as the contributions have been, there is the big question, financing.
Yes, financing for agriculture, SMEs have been very difficult here for one key issue, or various issues, but let me mention a few. Number one, you can't support businesses like farming, agriculture without venture capital funds or angel investors. So I mean, before you even come to the bank, there's where you have to do your bootstrapping, you have to have your feasibility study done, survey, you to be able to acquire the land, whether to lease the land before you are even bankable. So for you to become bankable, somebody has to support you to become bankable. So until you have a venture capital system that works, so I think there has to be a deliberate attempt. There has to be, which there was a particular governor of central bank that tried to design something in that in that line that all banks from their profits should be able to contribute 10% of their profits to support their venture capital, it turns to a pool of funds. Somewhere, somehow, because there was a back and forth whether it should be after or before tax, then bureaucracy again now made it, then another governor came and then scrapped it.
Okay, let's just hold it there for a moment and see if we can get this call through from Jigawa. Abubakar calling in from Jigawa. Hello, Abubakar.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Good day. My question is, I want to say this program is very important to us. My advice to you, I want to talk about veterinary services, because veterinary service is rendering abnormal. Some zoonotic disease from the animals. You can talk about the veterinary services in Nigeria. How government intervene in veterinary services in Nigeria because of zoonotic disease.
Okay. Well, all right. Abubakar is worried about the quality of veterinary services because of frequent outbreaks of diseases among the livestock, particularly cattle. That's what he's drawing attention to. Since we've already spoken about, we've considered the issue of agriculture and how that can help to drive it's a key factor in driving the economy forward. He's looking again at the question of veterinary services, ensuring the health of livestock, which is also key.
Yes. So you see, when livestock, animal husbandry becomes a business, it makes it a lot easier. At this point, it's just government that is trying to support.
Right.
Just like what we have in human beings, doctors having health centers in different places that are not equipped. So it will always also affect. But when it becomes business, when we begin to have like a structured health insurance policy for livestock, it becomes a lot easier. So if you have a particular amount of livestock and you insure them, then you have veterinary doctors who will also be there to provide services because they are getting paid. At this point in time, every veterinary doctor, will be waiting for government to pay you, or is that a civil servant, so those are the kind of things.
Okay. So, and just as you were concluding about access to
finance. So the second issue after talking about angel investors and venture capital is actually there's a big mismatch. The development finance institutions who are supposed to be the ones providing support for some of this, the small, for agriculture, like the Bank of Agriculture, you can't, how much do they have to, go into agriculture? Nexim Bank, how much do they have? These are banks you need to recapitalize. You need to put in a lot of funds into those agencies. And then again, their interest rate has to be considered. The process to giving out loans, you can't, like BOI will want to give an SME a loan and say, go and bring a bank guarantee from a commercial bank. So there's a mix of products now, of financial products, from a commercial bank and then a development finance bank. Now, the two things are, commercial banks, they are answerable to shareholders, while you are answerable to stakeholders. So you can't mix two of them together, because if stakeholders are government, owners of this bank, central bank, Ministry of Finance, you should be able to create products that will support. That's why you're a development finance institution. Now you're going to now mix a product and say, for you to get the loan, you must get a bank guarantee from a commercial bank. So you have actually, so that's what happens at the end of the day is, the loan is treated as a commercial loan. Exactly. It's just a smaller interest rate from the commercial bank's interest rate. So because if I come to the bank, say, okay, I have to take a loan from Bank of Industry, I need a guarantee. So commercial banks, because I'm going to be held responsible, and I'm also I'm answerable to my shareholders, so I have to also take that loan and manage it myself.
Can I just ask you this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick questions. You have a novel appointment with this new president of having an advisor on monetary policies and an advisor on revenue. How do you think that will change the system?
Yes, I think his role is to advise the president from the fiscal policy point of view, and then being able to advise the government on how to increase revenue, increase our tax to GDP, which from his target, the target is for us to get up to 18%. But for me, there are other issues, because the committee will reach out. They need to listen to practitioners, they need to listen to professionals who are in the field to be able to give them, okay, these are the recommendations you should come up with.
That takes us to the question of reforms. You've actually missed the reforms yourself. You talk about that all the time, and particularly reforms in the tax
regime. Yes, I think the decision to set up that committee that looks at the fiscal side and the monetary side is very critical, because it's taking care of the mistakes that the last administration did in terms of, as if Ministry of Finance never existed, and CBN took over the fiscal side, and even the monetary have its issues, but the fiscal side should be Ministry of Finance and Planning should be the ones looking at that. They are dealing with growing sectors, looking at the challenges and removing the obstacles. Revenue to GDP had been an issue, but revenue to GDP is a product of, we are not, people just need to be brought to the tax net. It's not about increasing tax. There are many people that are not paying tax.
Well, of course, you just said that the biggest worry is increasing tax.
Yeah, it's not to increase. It's to bring people into the tax net.
Most people worry about. Think about taxation. The taxes are going to go high, and many more things of goods and services will be taxed.
That's right. But what we are recommending is that instead of increasing taxes, there are many people who are not paying tax in Nigeria. So bring them to the tax net. And let's look at even the informal sector. Lagos, the story, the news we release, the report we had from Lagos, they are talking of millions of SMEs who need to be formalized. You can leverage technology to formalize them, bring them into the system. That will give them access to the single-digit loans and other facilities. That is, if government decides and chooses to recapitalize the development banks so that they are able to meet up that development priority of government. But on the other side of it is the fact that you need to be able to formalize them, because if you formalize them and they have access to loan, these are potential taxpayers. You know, these are people that will pay tax when the businesses are doing well. So you are missing a major chunk of, you know, repeating, overtaxing the same people who, because they have registered a company and they are within your control, you are able to. But there are many people out there that are not in the tax net that needs to be brought, and this can be done easily, you know. And I think that should be the emphasis. And then you are able to also use tax smartly to attract and support the growth of SMEs and businesses.
Okay. Well, as it were, we are in the last few minutes of this program now. For you, what would be the key to driving and sustaining this development that we so desire by this administration? You're a little bit cautious. You did say that at the start, that you'd rather not sing hallelujah, but point in directions that we should go.
Yes, so I'm excited about, you know, tax, you know, bringing more people into tax nets, but I'm also interested in ensuring that the monies are not stolen, and that when they are stolen, that those who have dipped their hand into the public well are punished. There is a lot of money out there that we need to get back and put back in our system. So the challenge is that in many parts of the country, citizens are governments. We live in the FCT here. Outside of very few places, I don't know when you drank water from public water supply. So if I'm taxed, I really want to know what I'm being taxed for. If I'm being taxed so that new estates, private estates can emerge in Katsina, Asokoro and the rest of them, and that's where my tax money is going to. I have a challenge with that. I want to be taxed and see that the public universities, the public education is funded with the resources of those funds. What we need to do is that we need to have a lifestyle audit. It's very key for public officials in our country. Sustainable development cannot go on where people who put their hands in the public till are left out of it. More private houses have developed, more private universities, more private hospitals, more private. Public is in recession. Private. So if we want collective progress, we need to make sure that people don't take away the resources that Dr. Amos and my brother Buna and Dr. are talking about, that people don't take those monies and go away and
well, for you, Dr. Ogido, as we wrap up,
yes,
the Tinubu administration is projected a 6% growth in GDP. Is this feasible?
Thank you very much. I think it is very feasible. When you run a government and you have limited funds, two things you can do: either you cut your expenses or increase your income. And because we are in a hurry to develop, we cannot cut expenses. As our colleagues have said, the number of people paying taxes in Nigeria is very low. So we need to increase and bring more people into tax net. I will give you an example. When the former governor Fashola was governor of Lagos State, Okada riders came together and said they went to the governor and said, where do we pay our taxes? Because they could see what he was doing with the taxes. So when people see what we are doing with the taxes, they will willingly pay. It is because of lack of accountability. And it is abuse of office that makes people not to want to pay tax. Many people are willing to pay tax. And I think what President Tinubu is doing now is to let the people see the direction the administration is going, to let the people see where the taxes will be used, and they will now be able to pay.
Perhaps, if I might add, to keep an eye on multi-taxation, because he spoke about
to keep an eye on multi-taxation.
If you look at that, a lot of people will tell you about how they pay taxes, especially those who are doing business.
And they should discourage regulators from becoming tax collectors. Yes. Because regulators that are supposed to handhold MSMEs to make them grow, they are the one taxing them.
That seems to be the norm now.
Punishing them.
Regulators who are the tax collectors.
Although mine, I want to look at taxation from a very interesting point of view, because I mean, for me, the more people throw in their funds, I want to use the word throw in their funds into the government, the more they want to see accountability.
Yes.
Because if it's even there, I don't know, it's in the Bible. It say where a man's treasure is, that's where his heart is. So the reason why our heart, a lot of people's heart is not yet in this nation, is because they are not paying tax. Now it's still seen as oil money, their money. Until your own money comes out, it will hurt you. When you see a local government drive a jeep, you come and ask him, Oga, this is our money. That's when a bike man will tell you, Oga, we don't behave like this here. It is our money. We have to take ownership of our funds.
Well, and it's on that point we must leave this conversation. As I always say, no one program can take care of all the issues. It's time to thank our guests who have been with us tonight. Dr. Steve Ogido, MNI, MD CEO, Successful Nigeria Limited. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Ogbonna Ukuku, investment expert, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Let me also say a big thank you to Amos Sakaba, MD CEO, Good Round Integrated Services Limited. Thank you for being with us. And Ezenwa Wagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. Always a delight to have you join our conversation. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for being part of it. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.